think we're back in action. Yeah, we should be fine now. Now you guys can probably hear me because my microphone is tolerable, I hope. And let's see. Today we're going to talk about some cognitive distortions here. Let's see. And I just want to make sure that my Twitch is actually set to just chatting. Need to just figure out how to do that. One moment. I'll let it have 10 tags, apparently. That's fine. While I'm setting this up, what do you guys know about cognitive distortions? Usually, and fallacies. So we'll talk about cognitive distortions and fallacies because there's just a lot there. All right. Okay, I think this is not going to work. Oh, man. All right, whatever. Content labels. This is going to be about none of these. We're not going to talk about anything too crazy. And no, that's fine. How do I set this to just chatting? I don't know. I have no idea how any of this stuff works, but bear with me here. I am the worst streamer on earth, but that's okay. All right. I'm going to need to take some other times to play around with this. Some other event. Oh, here we go. Categories. Okay, just chatting. Here we go. There we go. Yeah, we're just chatting about cognitive distortions and fallacies. There we go. Now we can actually get some work done. I'm going to close out of Twitch because otherwise I will lose my mind. All right. And today we're going to, this is something I send to literally all of my clients. And let's see. So we're just going to go through this checklist of cognitive distortions. And this is something that we all kind of do. A lot of these are very, very helpful evolutionary benefit kind of things. We're just going to go through them and assess them. I'm just going to go into my rant. All or nothing thinking. You look at things in absolute black and white categories. Now, this is me going into my political divide discussion, but it can be anything. It could be, it could be sports teams. It can be about war. It could be about politics. It could be about, any sort of value judgment you have. If you're a person who really likes saving money, there's only two things. There's the spendthrifts and the savers. And if you can go the other way as well, there's people who enjoy life or people who constantly are saving up in the bank and they die 2 days before retirement. And it's like, yeah, it makes things simple, right? One of our biggest problems is lack of nuance. Now you can actually be two things at once. You can be multiple things at once. An artist is a person who can have two mutually exclusive ideals in their head and still function, something like that. The entire idea is like you don't actually have to be one or the other. Now, the good thing about this is this can help you define what you're not. If you're not something, if you find yourself like saying, oh, I can clearly see that this person is one thing or this person is valuing certain value that I don't have, you can start with what is the opposite here. But if we don't have any nuance, chances are it's probably causing you some more trouble than it's actually helping. Overgeneralization, you view a negative event as a never-ending pattern of defeat. This is something a lot of my clients have trouble with. It's like, hey, I screw up once, I'm shot for the rest of the day. I hate my life, I'm a terrible person, whatever. Or, hey, I can never catch a break. It's like, yeah, I get that. You also kind of see it sometimes the other way, where it's like a positive event is overgeneralizes everything else. Like you can lose a limb, but you won $50 in the scratch off, so you'll very, very rarely does this occur. That usually happens more in manic phases. But so unless you have like bipolar or some other schizophrenia, some sort of disorder like that, that's unlikely to be a positive thing. Mental filtering is like a really, really big one that I work with all of my clients about. It's like, okay, I'm a good person. No, I'm not because of X, Y, and Z. It's like, even if negatives exist, there's this idea I'm almost keeping out the positives. The positives don't actually come in. And it ties into number 4, discounting the positives. So it's like, okay, here's an accomplishment, but you then say it doesn't count or it's not good enough or whatever. But mental filtering is almost like it doesn't exist in the first place. And when you have people with a lot of shame, regret, guilt, and a crap ton of trauma, these are usually people who've been horribly abused or poorly socialized or something. When they've been grown up with shame or had shame dumped on them, the idea is like, well, I'm a terrible person. Anytime that anyone says something good about me, they must either be wrong, lying, or they don't know the real me. Something like that. And I know, like, I remember the first time I actually did counseling, and this was, how old am I? So 17 years ago. My counselor, Judy, she called me out on it like one of the first weeks. It was like, do you know what you just did? You went through an entire list of things that were going great in your life, and then you said, but never mind that. It's like, oh, yeah, interesting. Almost like it doesn't really exist for me. Discounting the positive. Hey, here's some good things. Here's an accomplishment, but it never feels good enough. It never actually gets in. It never actually can feel, or you can't actually believe that it's worthwhile, even when you're getting the accolades right in front of you. Even when you're getting it shouted to the rooftops, maybe. That one's tough. All right, jumping to conclusions. This was another one. This is more for my extroverted people. Mind reading and fortune telling. I'm constantly trying to assess or try to read the other person's mind. Now, this doesn't mean don't trust your gut. This doesn't mean don't be aware of other people's, facial expressions, verbal expressions, just things like that. That's fine. But so many times people will be like, I'm trying to figure out what she likes. I'm trying to figure out what he likes or hates so I can take my energy, attention, and time and take some actions to either give him that or avoid that, whatever. And it's like, can't you just freaking ask him? Usually no, of course, because asking leads to either a fight or they'll tell you one thing but mean another. That was something I experienced growing up a lot. This entire idea of, well, you're saying you want X, but when I give you X, you fucking yell at me. Or the other way around. You're saying don't do this, but when you also get triggered. You also get crapped on the other way, where it's like, you're telling me one thing, but your actions mean a completely different thing. Now I'm engaging in mind reading as a defense mechanism, as a way of keeping myself safe from you. That one's a tough one too. Fortune telling. This is going to suck. Or this is going to be so great. What's the thing? I'm jumping into the polar bear enclosure and giving him a big hug. Maybe not. Sometimes this goes straight to catastrophization. It's not just planning for the future and being like, maybe the Huns will invade. I should probably get a gun in a root cellar. That's a little extreme, but at the very least, it's a thing that you can plan for. But so many times people just think about the worst case scenario all the time. What's the worst thing in the world here? It's that the Huns invade. My guns don't work. Everyone abandons me, and we also get struck by a meteor. I was like, okay, this line of thinking isn't actually helping you plan for it or address an anxiety. Instead, it becomes more of an act of self-punishment. Now, could this be helpful in the long run, and especially evolutionarily? Yeah, we want to plan for the future. But if we're saying something like, I think the word here is you arbitrarily predict things will turn out badly. You're always looking at the negative, and you're never actually saying, what might be good? You know what might be fun? You might know what might be exciting or something meaningful that improved my life from now until the next 50 years? If you don't do that, maybe you're engaging too much in the fortune telling. Magnification or minimization. These ones I hate, especially the minimization thing. And there's a few different ways to do this. But I think I hate the worst of the pain Olympics or the negative comparison. Well, other people have it worse. And it's like, well, the idea here is like, let's just say, well, I cut off one of your legs, and then I cut off two of the other guy's legs. Well, you, with only missing leg, you must not be in pain. That screaming, that bleeding you're experiencing must not be real. He has it worse. And it's like, I hear this stuff from freaking podcast people all the time. Well, you know what? Some poor, single mom in India is just saving up to get a moped and she has 3 kids and 3 jobs and da-da-da-da. It's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if someone's suffering worse. It doesn't actually validate or invalidate the pain I'm experiencing now because my dog died or that girl broke up with me or that I stubbed my freaking toe. It's like, you don't have to engage in pain Olympics to be valid in your feelings and your expectations and your goals. It's fine. But then sometimes it goes the other way. Hey, this is going to be the best thing ever. And you see that more in the manic phase, especially when it's a positive. But yeah, both can happen. Let's see. Oh, am I streaming to YouTube? I just want to make sure. Okay, yeah, we're streaming to YouTube. There's no problem there. I don't know why that came up. Sorry about that. Just Restream chaos. All right, magnification, minimization. You blow things way out of proportion or you shrink their importance inappropriately. Emotional reasoning. I love this one. I feel bad. That must mean I am bad. I feel good. That means I am good. I feel afraid. There must be a threat. I feel angry. I must be justified. This idea is, and this especially works with men who are like, I shouldn't be feeling pain in the first place. There must be something wrong with me as a person. Being depressed is for losers. I'm depressed, or at the very least I feel sadness. That means I am a loser. Better bury that down deep. I feel like an idiot, so I must really be one. I don't feel like doing this, so I'll put it off. I don't feel like doing a lot of things. And that actually is helpful, though. Like, you can say, hey, I don't feel like doing this, but I want to understand why I don't feel like doing this. And we'll poke that a little bit later, but it's like, sometimes you really don't want to do something, but other times it's like, I don't want to do this because this goes against one of my values, one of my core values. And now it's an untenable situation. Now I can't willpower my way through this. Or it's more like, I don't feel like doing this because, I'm afraid that it's going to be a situation where my work won't actually get rewarded, that no matter what I do, I'm never going to get the win condition. That can be helpful in exploring, but if you're like exploring and finding out what's going on underneath the surface, but if you're just like, no, I don't feel like doing this, so I must be right, then that's probably not going to help you. Shoulds. You criticize yourself or other people with shoulds. I should, I shouldn't. I must, I mustn't. Ought, have tos. I don't mind you necessarily having some standards of behavior for yourself. Yeah, don't poop on the kitchen floor. Yeah, don't poop on the kitchen floor while at a cocktail party, especially. There's some certain things there. But if there's something like, I should look like Dwayne The Rock Johnson, or I should be a multimillionaire, it's like, you might be engaging in this in a, not that you want to do this, just that you should be a certain way, and because you're not, I'm going to kick your ass. You're not good enough. You should be doing better. You should be, in fact, be burning yourself out. Work more until you die. Or, because one day, maybe if you reach all those shoulds, maybe you'll be able to love yourself, or maybe someone else will be able to love you. And it's like, if we're starting there, you're going to be experiencing a lot of internal rebellion and self-sabotage. Labeling. You identify with your shortcomings. Instead of saying, I made a mistake, you tell yourself, I'm a jerk or a fool or a loser. I was just talking to someone today, and this applies to me too. He described himself as a failure, as a businessman. It's like, oh, I'm a failed businessman. I am a failed businessman in the sense of I've had a business and it failed the first time. But it doesn't make me a failure. My first business didn't work out. I had to, and cut it short and basically let it fall apart in 2017. And I got a day job for a year and a half. And then and then I joined a group practice and then I did my own thing. That's like, oh, yeah, this happens. Doesn't actually mean anything. It's like sometimes I don't know how math works. It doesn't mean I'm a fool. It just means, oh, I don't have this level of competence in this subject. It's perfectly fine to be like, I'm not defining myself based on this as a standard or it is an attribute. I can just say, I'm not good at this. Oh, well. It does go a little bit differently when it goes to other attributes, like characteristics. It says, I'm a jerk. And it's like, well, that's interesting. Maybe something would be, you know what? I'm aggressive in certain ways, especially when I believe that I'm being attacked or insulted or laughed at. And I want a better way to assess that or at least control myself. But it doesn't necessarily mean I'm a jerk. So sometimes we got to redefine or at least be curious about where it comes from. Personalization and blame. You blame yourself for something you weren't entirely responsible for, or you blame other people and overlook ways that your own attitudes and behavior might contribute to a problem. What is it? It's getting close to, I think 9 years ago. 9 years ago, my dad was dying in a hospital, and I redlined my Hyundai Elantra. Fortunately, it was in the middle of the night, but I was on that highway in a way that if it was the day and other people around would be like, that guy's crazy. But they're not actually aware that I was going to see a person who might have been dying that night. Actually did die one of those nights. But the entire point is, it's like, oh, you would categorize this with different contexts. You would categorize this differently with different contexts. Same thing with anyone else. I hate driving on 376, but a lot of people are actually trying to rush to McGee Women's Hospital. They got a baby coming out of them. A lot of people are just, maybe there is an emergency that you're just not aware of. And a lot of times it doesn't work the other way. You're not providing any context to the self-judgment. Hey, I should be better. I should be something, but I'm not actually treating myself that way. I'm not allowing myself to recognize that, COVID happened. It wasn't necessarily my fault that all my businesses failed. Hey, maybe sometimes you actually get struck by lightning. Perhaps like weather actually gets in the way of one of your goals. Just an idea. Now, if you go further down, we would go into different ways to untwist your thinking, but I don't want to do that right now. In fact, let me switch over real quick. Let me stop screen staring. Excuse me, you get to see my lovely face. I actually don't like how my face is so overexposed with this lighting, but I have no idea what I did with my little, here we go. Let me add some extra light here horizontally. That did nothing, but that's okay. We're going to still do the best we can with what we have. Let's do a list of fallacies just from Wikipedia. Now, some of this is way outside of me. Like, I haven't been, studying the monk debates or being in a debate club or anything like that. I don't know formal logic in the sense of computer stuff. But let's just go through some of these things where it's like, these are things that might get in the way of proper communication. Let me see if I can find some stuff that's actually helpful. Okay, here we go. So, red herring fallacies. One of the main subtypes of fallacies of relevance is an error in logic when a proposition is, or is intended to be, misleading in order to make irrelevant or false inferences. So, ad hominem attacks, you all know what it is. Hey, I'm just going to attack the arguer rather than the argument. This is a big problem with all of the streamers, but well, maybe not all of them, most of the streamers. It's just one of those things where it's like, hey, even when like something is challenging one of these people's political beliefs, it's like, oh, this guy's a evil, whatever he is. And it's like, well, this doesn't help. This doesn't help actually explaining anything. You know what? I think I want to actually explore a little bit of a different kind of cognitive bias. Instead of doing a fallacy, I want to do, let me see if I can find the Abilene paradox. Yeah, here we go. False consensus. This is definitely one thing that I want to explore. Abilene paradox is a collective fallacy in which a group of people collectively decide on a course of action that is counter to the preferences of most or all individuals, while each individual believes it to be aligned with the preferences of most of the others. So, for example, in a hot afternoon visiting in Coleman, Texas, the family is comfortably playing dominoes on a porch until the father-in-law suggests they take a 50-mile trip to Abilene for dinner. The wife says, sounds like a great idea. The husband, despite having reservations because the drive is long and hot, thinks that his preferences must be out of step with the group and says, sounds good to me. I just hope your mother wants to go. The mother-in-law says, of course I want to go. I haven't seen Abilene in a long time. The drive is hot, dusty, and long. When they arrive at the cafeteria, the food is as bad as the drive. They arrive back home 4 hours later, exhausted. One of them dishonestly says, it was a great trip, wasn't it? The mother-in-law says, actually, she would rather have stayed home, but went along since the other three were so enthusiastic. The husband says, I wasn't delighted to be doing what we were doing. I only went to satisfy the rest of you. The wife says, I just went along to keep you happy. I would have had to be crazy to want to be out in the heat like that. The father-in-law then says he only suggested it because he thought the others might be bored. Group sits back, perplexed that they together decided to take a trip that none of them wanted. They each would have preferred to sit comfortably, but did not admit to it when they still had time to enjoy the afternoon. Oh, so going back to the cognitive distortion list. Wherever it was. Going back to the cognitive distortion list about mind reading. About, hey, I don't know what you want, but I'm going to try to think of what you want. It's like, yeah, this is part of the thing. I was in an anime rave in Shibuya, getting close to a year ago. One of my best experiences of my entire life. And it was getting a little late. I was getting tired, but I was with someone who's kind of my guide. And we were both kind of like really just questioning. We both wanted to leave, but we both wanted to make sure the other person wanted to leave first. It took just a little bit. But it was like, okay, we're both being too nice now. And we both recognized it in the moment. And then we left. And it was like, oh, nice. It's getting at, we enjoyed the anime rave for the hour 15, whatever amount of time we did. And then we got the hell out of there. And it was very nice. It was 2 hours. I can't remember. But what a wonderful time. But we had to question first. Like, oh, does she want to stay here with her friends? Oh, does he want to? No. Check it. Got to question things and also just say, hey, this is what I would like. But yeah, there are several factors that may indicate the presence of an Abilene paradox, but there are things that get in the way of it. Mutual agreement, ineffective communication. They're unable to actually say what's going on and what they want. Vocalization of group sentiment. the inaccurate assumptions here. Fourth component is the decision maker's reflections on the actions taken. And then the defeat. I don't know if we actually need these last two. Like the paradox might exist without actually awareness of it. Hey, everyone else wants to what's that old stupid short story? The lottery. There we go. Everyone's really excited for the lottery where they stone one random person in the community to death. But it doesn't seem like anyone's really speaking out about it until the end point after it's already done. That's like, maybe they don't realize it. Maybe they don't actually need, like, this has been going on for a while, like every year. Maybe we don't actually reflect on the defeat. Maybe it's like, well, everyone else wants to do it. I must be wrong. So, leaders who publicly, there are several factors that may indicate the presence of the Abilene paradox. Leaders who publicly do not fear the unknown. A group with no conflict or no debate type decision making. This is a big one. Like, and coming from the army, where you're like, listen, I don't trust any authority that doesn't have my best interests in mind. I don't mind the fact that part of their job might be to kill me one day. I hate the fact that they're idiots about it. And it's like, oh no, you don't do conflict, we don't do debate, we don't even do feedback, we don't do suggestions. That one is something that I've always hated, always. I know I was just a stupid, like, E4 highest rank ever soldier for my life. I was like, yeah, I was an ignorant idiot, but I had some decisions, or at the very least, having it open to the group would have been allowed some level of, I don't know. I just think there's a lot of things that work in that organization and a lot of things that are designed to cause these things to happen, cause these paradoxes, cause these distortions, and cause a lot of problems that could be solved with something really, really simple, like being able to say no to one thing. That's a rant for later when I have maybe a little bit more booze in me. All right. Overriding leaders, someone who's like just a tyrant about it, it's a problem. Lack of diversity and pluralistic perspective. Conformity. Yeah, that's definitely a thing. Recognition of a dysfunctional decision-making environment. Feeling of a messiah in the organization. Maybe that was what I was just talking about. I could have done so much better if they gave me all the power, right? But no, how many times have you like worked in an organization or even just been a part of an organization where one person is trying to hog all the glory? And it's like, it's really, really interesting when they're trying to save you from yourself. Oy. And the spiral of silence. So this is just one of those things. It's definitely a lot. All right. Do we have time for one more? Yeah, let's do one more major fallacy. And let me see if I can find it. Here we go. Let me see if this works. I don't even know if Restream is still working right now. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Law of triviality, or bike shitting. This one is something that really gets to me. The concept was first presented as a corollary of his broader Parkinson's law. He dramatizes this law of triviality with the example of a committee's deliberation on an atomic reactor, contrasting it to the deliberations on a bicycle shed. As he put it, the time spent on any item of the agenda will be in inverse proportion to the sum of the money involved. So a reactor, or the intensity of the work, or the whatever it is, whatever's the bigger number, the sum of whatever you're using, spending. A reactor is so vastly expensive and complicated that an average person cannot understand it. So one assumes that those who work on it understand it. However, everyone can visualize a cheap, simple bicycle shed. So planning one can result in endless discussions because everyone involved wants to implement their own proposal and demonstrate personal contribution. So they used to have a good example on this. It might be in the Parkinson's law. Let me see. No. They used to have a good example of this, but I'm just going to go off on a rant. So it's like when let's say you're part of this nuclear committee and you guys are designing this nuclear reactor, and the engineer has some worries about maybe what they're building, but they're trying to explain it, but it's too big jargon to me. The language is a little too extreme. He knows what he's talking about, but he can't communicate it as effectively as he wanted to. And one of the other people in the C-suite, has a lot of questions, but he was also not quite sure what he's asking. All he is looking at the papers and being like, there's something wrong here. And maybe everyone else is just trying to get through the day. It's like, okay, this design looks good. I don't really understand it, but I'm going for it. Meeting's done in 15 minutes. But hey, we have to, reduce the number of parking spaces. Some people would be willing to bike to this place instead of having to drive their cars. Let's build a bike shed. What color should we have on it? Well, I prefer black. I prefer blue. I prefer green. I want this to be painted in posy so it looks good, even in the winter. And I want it made of aluminum. I want it made of wood, whatever the fuck. And it's like, right. This takes an hour because everyone's trying to implement their own design. Now, the real important thing here comes up. Hey, we need to make some better coffee in the coffee room. This thing that we're drinking right now is terrible. And that takes 4 hours because everyone has their own version of what the perfect cup of coffee is and what it should be, and whether it's French press or pour over or the espresso machine. And it's like, this takes so long that it actually has to be tabled to the next round of the committee. And it's like, right. The triviality, the less important is, the more maybe even the more you fight about it. That actually works a lot with the counseling world, because it's like, I see couples and they will have these long drawn out fights about how they're putting the spoon in the drawer. And it's like, oh, right. Because it isn't actually about the spoon. It's about something else going on underneath the surface that, if that was brought up, might destroy your whole world. Might actually lead to divorce. Might be like, even though we love each other, we hate each other, bye forever. It can be devastating. It's almost like a monster that we only let up for 5 minutes once a year. It's like, time to bury that back down. It's like, we might even be scared of the things that are actually proportional. So just something to think about. I need some water, actually. This was just me kind of just ranting. I do want to talk a little bit more about the Peter principle. Maybe a little bit more about some of these paradoxes and some of these things. But I really want to talk a little bit more about cognitive biases. I would definitely want to explain a little bit more about what might be going on in some of them. But for right now, I'm going to grab some water and get prepped for my next session. All right.